Yeah, it's going to be one of those days. So here's the deal. This is probably one of the more stacked shows that we've ever had. And we're going in a bunch of different leagues in a bunch of different directions. And now that I finally sent the link to everybody, maybe we'll actually be able to have guests in short order. So here's the deal. When Bart pops in, morning, Alex. Bart pops in, we're going to talk about the men's national team until the bottom of the hour. Greg Garza comes in at 9:30 for the Friday Free Kick to discuss what's going on in the world of mentoring, and we'll probably get some stuff going on involving the men's national team and all of that. 10 o'clock, Decatur FC drops by, and it is the opportunity for Jack Marchant to let us know what's going on. They've got a very, very busy weekend coming, and it's a big weekend for them in the WPSL as they're racing to try and get to the top and get into playoff spots. So there's all of that. You've got, after that, Joseph Samuel from KSA. KSA is playing Atlanta United in the UPSL playoffs this weekend. Jason's calling that on a Sunday at Shiloh High School. So we caught up with Joseph Samuel. That'll be in the 10 o'clock half hour. 10:30, John Mercado, the head coach at Apotheos FC, will be dropping by to let us know what's going on with him, because Jared is going to be calling the match with Apotheos and App. That is this weekend. So John Mercado joins us for a couple of minutes at 10:30. Jason joins us after that to talk about something called Atlanta United. And maybe coming back full circle to talk about what happened last night in front of 59,000 of your best friends with the men's national team. But Atlanta United taking on Toronto. They're pulling up the grass, they're pulling up the slats, and they're fluffing the AstroTurf, or fluffing the turf surface, so Atlanta United can get back to their original surface coming up this weekend against Toronto. So that's the rundown. So as we said, it is Bart starting things off for 20 minutes of spleen venting, and it looks like he's already got one of those scanner's migraines after what happened last night. This has evolved or devolved, however you want to use it, into one of the more important moments in match day 3 for this program. It's one of the largest matches in decades, probably, when it comes to this national team. Hi, Bart. How was your day? What's the mug? What do we?
Les Miserables.
Ah, very nice. Okay.
Because that is the best way to describe yesterday.
Oh, man.
Actually, I do want to start off with positives, John, because I think it needs to be noted that Atlanta, on a 6 p.m. start on a weeknight, a school night, with another, I guess an important event going on in the city at the same time.
A geopolitical event happening around the corner.
We outdrew Dallas. And it's not about who supports soccer better, but we know Atlanta supports soccer better than Dallas. We have it factually on record now. But 59,000 for a midweek game at 6 p.m. kickoff, which is an insane thing to begin with. We can get into scheduling and time zones down here if we want to, but that is an amazing feat. And everyone who attended, I'm sorry you had to pay buckets of money. CONMEBOL, Ticketmaster, they don't like you. They clearly don't like the U.S. men's national team by scheduling a game with Ivan Barton as the center official. And, I think this match was fixed in favor of Panama because they felt bad because, despite CONMEBOL's best efforts to keep U.S. fans out of Mercedes-Benz Stadium, we showed up, showed out, and made it loud all night. And they just, they couldn't have it.
It was a great evening for the fan base and the representation of U.S. soccer because it was loud. And
Yeah, and it was very much a U.S. crowd. Like there were
absolutely.
Panamanians there, which is great. Like and that's going to happen in the States. It's going to happen at a major international tournament specifically. But it was a U.S. crowd, and I think that needs to be stated because that's 2 games in a row we've hosted this year, John. Right?
Yeah.
Broke a record 51,000 for the women, and then
Mm-hmm.
put 59,000 in there on a Thursday at 6 p.m. because they put the Uruguay game at frickin' I think 11 o'clock kickoff in Uruguay time, at least 10 o'clock kickoff Uruguay time.
Wow,
I don't get that, John, but a
You
great
are-
job. We had an incredible turnout at all the American Outlaws events. We were joined by the Barra 76 folks, joined by Scuff Podcast, joined by Men in Blazers.
It's Man in Blazer now, sir.
It's Man in Blazer, yeah.
Man in Blazer.
Well, men, because Dax McCarty was there, and we got to hang out a little bit with Dax and ask him some questions. No one asked him when he's going to replicate the ginger midfielder role of Atlanta United and choke slam a New York Red Bulls player to the ground. But we hopefully will build up to that, right? It was honestly a great showcase of the soccer community here in Atlanta. Yes, we were supporting the U.S., but it was truly a cultural conglomeration, if you will, of everyone coming together to create a fantastic experience. And hopefully U.S. soccer, I say this knowing that what this might mean, but this is 2 losses in a row for the U.S. men's national team here in Atlanta. That's not good. No. So maybe they need to find a coach that'll win in Atlanta.
So let me see if I've got everything squared away here. Yeah, you need to be throat coating it this morning, sir. You were definitely low gearing.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel better than I did last night. Let's put it that way. I downed like 2 bottles of Gatorade.
So in the 5th minute off a Pulisic set piece, you get a save and a rebound. It was disallowed for offsides on Tim Ream. Then you have in the 12th minute,
we need to talk about that. Hold on.
All right, go for it.
Now, I did not see this live.
Remember, you've got 25 minutes because Garza.
I know. I didn't see this live. But watching the replay, it looked like a handball in the Panamanian defender after it headed off of Wes's, and his arm was outstretched. So, I guess the referees didn't bother to look at that. But by golly, they got to make sure Tim Ream was offside.
So then in the 12th, another moment, Blackman basically trucks Matt Turner.
Should have been a yellow card. That's a yellow card all day of the week, every day, everywhere. But Barton doesn't believe in yellow cards for U.S. opponents, at least not until the 90th minute when the game really is out of reach.
So you get no card there in the 12th, and I think what that does is set a tone for the remainder of the match. And we've talked in Reffing Down in the past about setting tones where, okay, if I am a player and in this case, it's Cesar Blackman, and I see basically a green light where I can undercut the U.S. keeper, and Matt Turner was down, and I literally thought it was an AC joint when he hit the ground. I thought it was.
I'm surprised he stayed in the game, John, because I'm with you. Like when I saw the replay, and I was like, oh, the way he landed scared me.
Yep. And it was revealed as a leg contusion as to why Matt Turner was.
See why.
Yeah, half in favor of Ethan Horvath. I know that's not a substitute that you ever want to make at 45 minutes, but no card there. It sets a tone, and then in the 16th minute, Timothy Weah has the moment where he decides to square off against Rod Martin, and you can't rabbit punch anybody. I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
But Timothy Weah has one of those moments. He rabbit punches Martin, and first off, it's a yellow. You go to the monitor. Barton switches it, waves it off, and goes red. And that sets the tone for the remaining 74-plus minutes because you're having to do things from a man down.
Yeah, and that was – look, we'll get into the Berhalter stuff because I don't think he coached this game very well. But the reality is that's something that Tim Weah knows he shouldn't do. And you can't call this team young, John. Tim Weah has been playing on this national team, this national team, since 2018 when he was also a professional.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not great at math, but that's 6 years, right? I know you can say he's 24. I get it. That's young in our perspective. The man is a 6-year professional of not just the U.S. men's national team, but also professional soccer. That can't be something you do. Not in that way. You got to know when your time to do that is, or how to get around it. And throwing a forearm to someone's face is not it. To be smarter. Give him a little nut check when he runs by you. I mean, seriously. I mean that with all sincerity. That was one of my moves as a goalkeeper. That, or just holding on a little bit to the shorts. But that was a grave mistake, and something that, when you look at this game as a whole, that you started really well. Mm-hmm. You had a goal, obviously legitimately called back. Tim Ream was offside, but that momentum was building. And then Tim Weah threw it out the window.
Mm-hmm. And, we always talk about the idea of being a man down and playing a little freer with 10. It only took you a handful of minutes before you got the lead.
Yep.
And it stuck with Jedi and Balogun with a nice 1-2. And I will say, I mean, you had a hot crowd to begin with. You had a crowd that was bordering out of its mind because of what was going on. And then you get that goal, and thankfully there was a roof on the building, because I think what it did, the moments ahead of time, first off, getting the goal wiped off the board, you had a hot crowd from the 5th minute on. And so I think that it helped propel the United States to keep them engaged, to keep them pushing, and to basically they got mad. It's like what was it? It's like in was it Rocky 3, where Clubber Lang is Rocky's sitting there and he's just taking the punches and he's rope-a-doping Clubber Lang, and Apollo's concerned. He's getting his butt kicked, and Paulie goes, no, he's getting mad. And so
right.
I think that's what you had your Rocky 3 moment against Clubber Lang there, where you got mad. And so you had a hot crowd of 59,000. You had a team that was motivated, and you end up getting the goal on the board, but that only lasted 4 minutes. But you had a crowd that was engaged and a team that was chasing, because they knew what they had to do at that point.
Right. And I think the response was good in the moment, right? I think I do want to point that out, that the players in the rest of the first half responded decently. However, we'll get to one of my issues with this team when we get to the next moment on your timeline, I'm sure.
Sure. Well, you get through you end up 4 minutes later, you end up with an equalizer there in the 26th.
Yeah.
Then you end up with a foul, no card. This is how I wrote it in my notes. Yvonne Bartone, foul, no card, no foul, call off a set piece. Pulisic pulled down inside the 18, no call on the 42nd.
This is at the point where he just completely lost the game.
Oh, I thought he lost it all the way back.
Well, he lost it. I think he showed who he was back in minute 5 or whatever, 12.
Yeah, 12. The turn,
and he continued to just not adjudicate this game fairly at all. Like, I mean this sincerely. This is not sour grapes. He did not do things that are just automatic yellow cards. There were twice that Flo Balogun on a breakaway or to start a promising attack gets just yanked down from behind, and he doesn't give a yellow card for it. That is an automatic yellow card. But, Jedi Robinson gets one just because he, I don't know, had the audacity to foul someone. And that's pathetic refereeing. I mean that sincerely. This is not someone who can be taken seriously as a referee when you allow things that are supposed to be automatic yellow cards go, like slamming into the keeper, like pulling a guy down from behind on a promising attack. Those are automatic yellow cards. And he even gave Jedi a yellow card after applying advantage. And I've said so many times on the show that when you allow a promising attack to continue, you're not supposed to go back and give a yellow card for stopping a promising attack. Now, I don't think that the yellow card was for stopping a promising attack, and I'm not saying that Jedi didn't deserve a yellow card. But when you looked at that first half, even like outside of the Weah red card, which was the only thing he got right, he had a terrible terrible game up until 90 minutes when Panama went full on. Just, I mean, they should have been given 3 red cards in in stoppage time. And then we'll get to the stoppage time where not only did he only get 5 minutes of stoppage time in the
4.
first half,
It was 4 in the
he
second.
gave 5 in the first half. Didn't even meet the 5 minutes. He got to 5 minutes basically. Like, I timed it and he got to like 4:57. Right. That's one. That doesn't even include the fact that Matt Turner alone was down for a good 5 minutes. Then we had a red card review. We had a goal check review. We had 2 goals. That does not equal 5 minutes of stoppage time.
No.
That is absolutely a joke from that referee crew.
Oh, boy.
A joke, John.
Oh,
but I want to talk about the goal that Panama gave up, because this to me explained why Panama won this game and the U.S. didn't. And we can, yes, the red card was a point of it. Panama was relentless. Panama was dedicated to their jobs, and they came out committed to winning the game and winning each battle. The goal we gave up is because Jedi Robinson didn't win his challenge, went in without the commitment to come out and win that ball, right? And then the Panamanian player has basically a free shot from the top of the box because Tim Ream's old and can't step to it, and Jedi had gotten beat. And that happened again with the goal that Panama scored to win. And it was just the theme of the night where Panama was willing to do whatever it took to win. And the U.S., because Greg Berhalter does not hold this team accountable for their he is a standards guy. He cares about standards and metrics and all that stuff. That is not how you play this damn game. Okay? You play, and this is the problem. Sorry, this is the rant. We're getting into the rant portion. I'm sorry.
Okay.
This is the problem when you excuse all these prima donna players from not playing in freaking Gold Cups, John. Yeah, they get to go play in the Nations League twice a freaking year, and then they're playing in a neutral crowd. No, this is why these players need to be playing Gold Cups. This is why these players need to be playing continental competitions, because your one big tournament experience being the World Cup is an absolute joke. Okay, Nations League is not equivalent to a Gold Cup because you're not playing 3 group stage games where you have to do everything you can to get a result to advance to the next round. Okay, you're playing home and aways against random freaking teams that barely people can find on the map. This is a failure from Greg Berhalter and his staff, top to bottom, to not prepare this team to go out and win in continental competitions. And no, Abby, Miles is not injured. He just isn't preferred by Greg Berhalter because, again, he goes to Cincinnati. We don't have to defend him anymore. He's not better than CCV, and he's not better than Tim Ream. Sorry. Maybe you could have put him at striker. He scored a couple of good goals for the U.S. soccer team over the years. Maybe that should have been the play.
Okay, so
we certainly needed some help on set pieces.
All right, so hydrate for a second, because you're man. When you record soccer for USPOD, you're going to need all the help you get. So after the match, Tim Ream says this about the tactics used in the second half. Ream, quote, "So in the first half, obviously, Gio had to move out to the wing. Christian was on the wing, and they were both kind of sagging more than we liked because then we needed them to obviously get up the pitch. So they were sagging, and we were almost becoming more of a back 6 instead of a 5 or a 4.5, really, is what we were trying to do in the first half just to get through it. And so the adjustment was, let's play a 5. Let Christian be a little higher, play 3 in front, and let him kind of be a little bit more high to be able to counterattack. And I'm telling you what, it worked for the most part until the very end. And I think that's the most disappointing thing, is that we were that close to having such a positive result after a tough start. So, yeah, that was the thinking behind it. And again, from the most part, it worked really well." That's Tim Ream after the match.
I think what bothers me the most about the tactical structure of the second half was that it was so not passive. I don't want to say it was passive. And I understand why you went to 5 at the back. I do. I would have preferred just putting in an extra midfielder, if that makes sense, and really making sure that Panama wasn't able to get through your midfield line as easily. And so taking off Tyler Adams at halftime, which seemed planned because Greg doesn't do anything.
Well, and also remember, we're still trying to figure out where he is.
And that's what I'm saying. It was clearly planned.
Yeah, 45.
It was planned to have 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Bringing on CCV, I don't like all these things. I get it. The problem was you go to 5 at the back, right? And you didn't really take away what Panama was doing, which was getting through your midfield, right? So the 5 at the back doesn't really stop the midfield from being a little bit leaky. And that's not on the midfield guys. That's because you are down a man. That's what happens. So instead of trying to take away the middle of the field where you have some of their best players, Carrasquilla being one of them, you allowed them that freedom inside in the midfield and gave them that midfield space to kind of work together. Now, yes, in theory, you always want to say, let's, throw in an extra defender, but that just wasn't working for this game. And further, and this is not a shot at Joe Scally because some people think it is. You kept Joe Scally, who is not a very good attacking right back. I think that's fair to say. After they scored and you needed a goal, you kept Joe Scally on the field. That was and that's the problem when you made 3 subs at halftime, one of which maybe didn't need to be made. Could you sneak out 20 more minutes out of Tyler Adams and just see if he can plug things up and maybe start a better counterattack? And I get it. We don't know where he is fitness-wise, but these are the risks you have to take in an international soccer competition. And Greg doesn't take risks. Everything has to be measured and metrified and quantified and expressioned and all these stats that he cares about. Don't equate to, buddy, you've got to get these players in the right mindset to go out and win against teams whose lives depend on winning. And that is where this team is right now, is they are not at that level mentally. And there's a reason why, and it's not a bad thing. I don't want to go Carly Lloyd on these people. But the reality is these players in CONCACAF and CONMEBOL view the game differently. They play the game with a different mindset, with a different heart. And this U.S. team, despite their fight, because they did, I agree with Tim Ream, for 83 minutes, you did okay, right? But it still wasn't at the level of Panama being desperate to win. You were not desperate to hold on to that draw. You weren't doing everything it took to not let Panama win, okay? And again, there are some tactical issues that I have a problem with. This isn't fully on Greg. I think this is very squarely on Tim Weah and very squarely on players not rising to the occasion. But again, I think the problem comes down to Greg doesn't.
Yeah.
But I think that, again, to me, the problem continues to be Greg Berhalter being very nice and not really build the team culture. You can talk about, yeah, great, they love each other. I love it. Give me, I would rather sometimes players have a little bit of actual issues with each other. Maybe some locker room scraps if they're going out there and then also scrapping with the other team, not in a red card way, but fighting for each other and fighting to win the game. And it's just frustrating that you're not seeing that from this U.S. team. And you even saw it in the Bolivia game where you met the expectations. You did what you had to do, right? Job done. You're getting passing grades, but you're not a standout student, right? This is the kid, no offense to anyone, this is the kid who's freaking going to Kennesaw State. Congratulations. You did it. You went to college. Okay. You ain't going to Emory. You ain't going to Tech. Okay. We need to expect more out of this team than just meeting expectations for a coach who's been on the job for 5 years, for a team that's been together since 2021. At least most of them since 2020, who have World Cup experience. And the reality is we have not seen this team level up under Greg. They have not. And if you're going to tell me that you bring a guy back for a second term, he needs to level up, and we're not seeing that. Sorry, Ahmed. I was just saying that Kennesaw, that's the point. Kennesaw State is fine. If you go to Kennesaw State to get a degree, great. Good for you. Okay? But if you go to Emory and go become a doctor, I'm sorry. That's because KSU, because we play there. We know where it is. Sorry. What, you want me to say Georgia State?
Careful, Cowboy.
Exactly. I'm not going to hate on Georgia State.
Well, you got folks on staff here at SDH from Kennesaw too, so it's
there's nothing wrong with Kennesaw State. It's a great school. I'm just saying that it's not the level of Harvard. There, is that a better? I'll shit on UGA. We all hate UGA. So you go to UGA, not Harvard. There you go.
For Jason, now calm down.
Yeah, Jason can handle it.
Tautoskia Lumberjacks in the 88th, and that just was completely and totally out of control.
And that was the first of a lot of fouls that I felt should have been like red cards. There was one on West, like 2-footed studs. Like somehow not. That was just like, I mean, he was quick to give yellow cards, but those were red cards. Like Panama was lucky to finish with 10. And they were doing it all match. And again, Barton let him get through with it up until 88th minute. And then all of a sudden he had to, because Tautoskia, that was ugly.
Yeah.
And that's shameful from Panama, but also what I'm talking about, where they were willing to just do whatever it took.
Yep. I know you got a lot to do with Soccer for US POD, and
we are recording today.
You did. I was going to say you better.
We're recording today about the U.S. women's national team. That roster drops. U.S. Soccer, man, giving us a roster drop, a match announcement, and then ticket announcement yesterday. And I'm like, man, I'm just trying to wrap my head around Copa America. They don't believe in extending the news cycle. That's for sure.
No, it's
the NFL could never.
Pile on to it, brother. So go save your voice. Thanks for the opening rant, as always.
Yeah.
And we know we'll be listening to Soccer for US POD very, very soon. Thanks for dropping by and surviving the A block.
Y'all, thanks for letting me rant. Enjoy your day. Hopefully it's not as hot, and go outside and enjoy it.
All right. Be good as he drinks from his Les Miserables mug. Be safe, my friend. We'll see you soon. Wow. Hi, Greg.
What's up?
There was a match last night that that folks are in a bit of a lather about that happened here in Atlanta.
Yeah, I saw it last night. I was at a restaurant and had a bar.
Yeah,
I don't drink, but still sit at the bar.
Right there,
so I can watch the games. Yeah. No comment, I guess you can say.
Well, I think that. Well, I mean, we can take some of the elements of it and break it down into mentoring moments, and I guess that's what we'll do. Since you're pleading nolo contendere to watching the match and any comments that are associated with it. Tim Weah does what he does in the 14th minute, I want to say, and it was a moment of indiscipline, is what it has been referred to in the past when other folks do it. So 16th minute. So when Tim Weah does what he does and puts his team at a decided disadvantage for the remainder of a match, he came on social media after the match and apologized, and obviously said the right things in that moment about where it won't happen again. He'll learn from it. Mm-hmm. He apologized to his teammates, the country, etc. When you have a moment of indiscipline, regardless of what it is, but obviously within the context of what we're talking about from last night, how do you better yourself? How do you recalibrate yourself? How are these learning experiences, especially as older players can counsel younger players and mentors can counsel mentees, when it comes to being disciplined in the moment and being disciplined on the day? What are those kinds of conversations like? As he takes the big drink from the coffee.
Let me think about that, because I mean, my question would be, how long has Timmy Weah been a pro?
Mm-hmm. I mean, and he's been with the national team for a handful of years, so
he's been. I mean, you should know what's expected of you,
mm-hmm.
right? And it's interesting because we always talk about, the selves. The 4 selves come from the national team. Those 4 selves, they come from the head scout of U.S. Soccer. Self-belief, self-discipline, self-regulation. That's another one.
Yeah.
And self-assessment. So, I mean, there's going to be a lot of self-assessment right now for him to kind of look at himself in the mirror, be honest with what he's done, and try and find a way to, you can't really necessarily fix what's behind you, but you can try and hopefully be the most supportive you can be. We're all going to make mistakes. Crap happens. Right? So
ish does in fact happen. Yes.
Yeah. And now you just kind of have to find a way to deal with it. They have to move forward to be to solidify their next game, which in my personal opinion, from what I've seen from Euros has been so underwhelming. Copa America has been so underwhelming of level of play, in my personal opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I think Uruguay is probably one of the top 5 national teams in the world right now. Just from the 2 games that I watched them play, of how dangerous they can be. And that's just my personal opinion. And both tournaments have been so underwhelming. The level of play has been, I don't know if soccer's getting worse, but it's both tournaments have been very underwhelming in my personal opinion, of thinking that teams are going to be absolutely fantastic and just really underperforming. I mean, you look at Brazil, for example, even Argentina, in my opinion, have been okay. England, you have tons of different big house teams that are, supposed to be these next level of play. Every player is playing in a big league, and they've been so underwhelming to watch. It's been disappointing as a fan, to be honest.
When you mentioned the four selves that are a part of your own analysis as an athlete, and you mentioned Uruguay too at the same time. And when you have someone like El Loco, Marcelo Bielsa, who is as different a cat as you can get when it comes to coaching. I mean, he is PowerPoint presentations, and it is, we're going to run fifth gear. We're going to slam it into fifth gear, and we're going to run that way for 90 minutes. And if you can't do it, then you're not here, and you're not a part of the solution. You're a part of my problem that I've got to fix. It seems like sometimes countries need jump starts, and you might have to do that 180-degree turn to get those desired results, at least in the short term. We're seeing something like that from Uruguay in your career and in your observations when you have a coaching change and it is 180 degrees. You go from the disciplinarian to the players coach, or you go, oh, that didn't work. We've got to go back the other way. When you've had coaching changes that have been successful in the beginning, not necessarily thinking longer term, but early successes. When it comes to the four selves, I would imagine that coaching changes and shocks to the system, do they help you analyze yourself, or are you forced to continue to reanalyze yourself in the idea of the four selves when you have coaching changes and shocks to your soccer environment, I guess?
I think that's where you have to be adaptable, right? But it has to go both ways. You can look at interesting. No, I don't know if most people know, but Tata is actually Bielsa's philosophy, right? Tata learns from Bielsa's philosophy. There's a lot of, and I don't know if that's just an inside the locker room type of thing, but not many fans know of. But there's a lot of different philosophical coaching ways, right? For me, I can tell you I had coaches that would go by the book, which I didn't learn much from them, right? And then I had coaches that were maybe they have created their own aura or their own persona within coaching, maybe from when they played before, or just their own way. And Bielsa has created that. You have La Volpe, right, within Mexico, and so many coaches that I was under, they came from his philosophical ways. You have El Bigote, well, both of them are El Bigote, but you have Tuca Ferretti as well from Tigres, who so many new coaches within South America, it's not only within Mexico, follow his philosophical ways. And Tata followed Bielsa's philosophical ways. If you think back to the way that we played in 2017, 2018, we were crazy, right? That's why they call Bielsa, a local, right? So we had that local mentality to our, and Tata would always tell us, I want the other team to think that we are crazy, to press like this, to go 1,000 miles an hour from the beginning of the game. And I think that's what kind of really created that spark and that success for us within those years. But you say when you have a coaching change, it has to be adaptable on both sides of the game, on both staff and players. Let's look at Atlanta United when Frank de Boer came in, right? There's a philosophical change within the locker room from the get-go when Frank de Boer comes in. And I think everybody was still set because of the success in the philosophical ways of Tata or Bielsa. And sometimes that just doesn't click. Sometimes it just doesn't work. And sometimes it just won't mesh. And sometimes it will just create chaos within a locker room and within that relationship that you're building within a team. And so I think I look at Uruguay and they have this new coaching change, and it looks to me that if you look at the types of players that are on that team, I just look at two players that are probably great leaders on that team, which is one is Darwin Nunez, right? Luis Suarez as well, who comes from that same philosophical 5-second rule within Johan Cruyff and playing in Liverpool and all these different places. And then you have Francisco Valverde, which is also another philosophical, the Ancelotti mindset of, hey, you don't have to play the prettiest, but everybody's going to work their tail off and understand that we have the industrial players and guys that can change the game. You can tell that probably by those three leaders of the team, the guys that are probably playing at the highest peak of their careers, they have had everybody else buy into that new philosophy and what Bielsa is creating. And it's interesting. It's cool to see. That's just my own personal opinion, right? In the very beginning of the show, saying I think there's been a lot of teams that have been very underwhelming at performing in a way and in a sense to where I think that the expectation from us as a fan has been so much more than what they've showed us. And that even goes, that even goes sometimes with our own country. We have to assess as a fan and be like, man, I know with the players that we have, we can be so much better. Right. And maybe that's a moment for them to, and I think great players do that. I think they probably do it as a team, especially after the loss against Panama. You kind of, in those games, you have to turn the page as quickly as possible and just focus on the next, because there's nothing you can analyze within playing a man down the whole entire game. You can't analyze anything and what you can do better. But I do think in watching the Bolivia game, I think we could have just absolutely demolished Bolivia, a very poor side. And we didn't. We struggled at times in that last play, or we struggled in times of the creativity in the last 30% of the field. So I think there's a lot of different analyzing moments, and not to be a negative, but to hopefully build towards what we are capable of as a country, and as a national team. But I think there's a lot of teams and national teams right now that are probably going through that same cycle of, hey, we need to be a lot better with the talent that we have on the team. We need to be a lot better.
Brazil and Mexico come to mind in that, with El Tri being in a transitional phase, and it's like they're being brought kicking and screaming into that transitional phase. It's like it's almost like what we saw with the women's national team, where you're almost waiting too long. You're hanging on to the veterans almost too long. And then when you finally do make that decision, it's too late, and you put yourself further behind than you would have been if you had just gone ahead and said, all right, we're going to bring in younger players. We're going to do it this way. Brazil, I think, is the same way, where they're in transition. They waited too long with the older players. You have younger players that are having to kind of learn on the fly. And you kind of put yourself in this damned if you do, damned if you don't category, instead of just going ahead and doing it. And you're seeing the results, sadly, with a lot of the blue bloods that are out there right now.
Yeah, Mexico is the U.S. national team from the years of 2015 to 2019, in my personal opinion. Right, that was when I was in the national team, and it's a transition phase. It's a transition phase to where, like, nothing is solidified. There is no solidified team that you say, okay, these are the guys we're going to work with for the next 5 to 6 years. It's just completely, it's a Ferris wheel, right? You're still trying to figure out. And Mexico, they're in that right now. They're in that transitional phase of trying to figure out who are their next solidified stars going to be. And I don't think they've found them. I don't think Jimenez has really solidified himself on a team to where he's a big dog. You're playing in the Netherlands, right?
Yeah.
I think the MLS is stronger than the Netherlands, than their league. So it's that there's certain players that I think still need to be on, great teams within the world to then be on Mexico. Which if you look at Mexico in the past, and those guys that were really doing well in other places, those were the guys that are now transitioning out, right? And have moved on within their careers. Brazil, this is the worst Brazil team I have seen since I've been alive.
Wow.
I mean, I love soccer because of Brazil, right? My journey, my path started in Brazil. This is the worst, and obviously my boy's mother is Brazilian, right? So we still hang out and we watch games and hang out with all of her friends and all of our friends within Atlanta. There's a big Brazilian community,
Ooh.
and we always joke around and we say it's the level of responsibility that these players have taken. Let's look back at 2002, 2006, right? 2010. It can be 2014 even. You can take it that far. Although their last success was in 2002, which is crazy to me.
Yeah, I know.
But if you look back at that team and you go through the lineup and you look at every single player and where they are playing, and you look at the team now, and you have players now playing for West Ham, for Aston Villa, for Wolves, for Porto, for I don't know where, CSK Moscow. And you go back and you look at Brazil, and every single player at that time was playing for Inter Milan, AC Milan, Barcelona, and Real Madrid.
Yeah.
The whole entire team was represented on the 4 best teams in the whole entire world at that time. You can't. There's no comparison. You can't tell me that those players feel that sense of power within themselves. They can't. You can't play for Wolves and then go into the Brazilian national team and look back and be like, well, the person who was before me played for Real Madrid or played for Barcelona for 18 years, right? And I'm playing for Wolves. You can't. And so I think Brazil is far behind in to where I believe in the past, even in 2002, 2006, 2010, maybe 2014, to where you saw the yellow and blue and it terrified you. And it's there. You don't see that anymore, unfortunately. And I mean, I think most of us within my generation, when we were growing up, Brazil, although being an American player, you still wore a Brazil jersey, right? You still loved the Brazilian way, the Ginga way, and they've really lost it. So it's very disappointing. And I mean, the amount of criticism that we are giving as Americans, you're playing against great teams, but I mean, only imagine these countries where 20 different radio channels and 20 different TV channels in Mexico and Brazil are dedicated to soccer, right? So imagine the criticism that those guys are receiving. That's a difficult one. That's a bit difficult place to be in.
Greg Garza, Beyond Goals Mentoring, hanging out with us for the Friday Free Kick. It's officially halftime. We're changing ends. Greg is going to continue to be hydrated here. It's a very key morning for hydration when it comes to discussing everything that we do. You mentioned expectations and pressure. When you get older, and I mean that in the driver's license sense, and you have more experience as a professional player, is it easier or more manageable to handle pressure than you are when you're a younger professional athlete, or is it still something that gets to you at the same level and it's still the same fight, or do you manage it, or you're able to manage it differently when it comes to all of the external pressure and those 20 radio stations and the 20 TV stations coming down on you? Is it a different way of handling it? Do you just learn to navigate it? Is it still the same kind of a struggle? What is it like dealing with pressures as you get older as an athlete?
I think the pressure always will remain the same. If you're playing at that level, the pressure is always there. Now Mike says it very well. I mean, he always says that pressure is earned, right? Pressure, you have to embrace it and cherish it. Pressure is a privilege. So those guys that are playing at that level, Schmeichel Sr. said it the other day, and I believe it was the Champions League final. And he was speaking about, I want to say he was speaking about Rodrigo. And I think right before the Champions League final, he had said that Manchester City was the best team in the world, if I'm not mistaken. And I just remember right before the pregame, they were asking, well, this guy has been criticized for this. He said this, the Madridistas or whatever, all the fans have now criticized him for saying that they're not the best team, et cetera, et cetera. And he had said something that really stuck out to me. And he said, look, when you get to that level, you have now dealt with so much pressure that the only pressure that you should really focus on is the internal, right? The internal pressure to the level of standard and, you know, I guess the ladder that you hold yourself to, that is the only pressure that you should feel. And I think I was really spot on, because when you're at that level, you are already so accustomed to the external pressure. And maybe that's something that does come with the experience. But I think if you are able to solely focus on the internal pressure, what level of standard are you holding yourself to? And what level of standard do you know that you can continue to hold yourself to? That is something that, where if you allow that focus to be pointed in that direction, it eliminates everything else. And I mean, look, maybe didn't have the best final he should have played, Rodrigo, but I mean, the semifinal, this guy absolutely crushed it. So, you know, really gave his team a great showing to get to where they were at the end of the season.
So when it comes to the younger athlete today and your mentees, are they, because of all of the advancements and understanding social media and understanding coverage in its context and people getting on the 280 character app, inventing their spleens, going on Insta and doing what they do, are your mentees and athletes of that age, do they handle it better, worse, or just differently from when you were a professional athlete?
I think pressure has been amplified because of probably the social media aspect of self-acceptance.
Yeah.
I think it is harder. It is harder these days within the young kids to understand and accept their own self-worth and their self-value. Whereas back in the day when we were kids, it was the self-acceptance that I had was against, maybe, you know, not against, but I mean, around 5 other kids that you were really close with. And you didn't have that amplification of, I need to be accepted by someone who's living a world across from me.
Yeah.
Whereas in today, every video that you post or every picture that you post, it is always looking for, whether it be the likes or whether it be the comments or whether it be the highlights or whether it be anything. And we just didn't have that as kids. So I think our like I said, our focus was probably more internal. That's a good way to put it. And now sometimes a lot of these kids, their focus is external. Their focus is external acceptance, and that external self-acceptance should never be. I think within our mentorship, we really try and help kids understand their self-worth and self-value is greater and more important than anything else. And I think a lot of kids these days, I see they shy away from that. They're always thinking about what somebody else thinks of me. They're always thinking about how did somebody else think that I played. I remember playing with a kid whenever I was on the U17 national team. And we still talk about it. And I saw him the other day and I said, dude, you were, and I spoke with some other people as well. And they were also former teammates of mine. And they thought the exact same thing. And we now laugh about it. But I told him, you were one of the only players that I can remember being on the under-17 national team that we would finish the game, and as we would get back on the bus, whether we were traveling or whatever it was, and you would sit down next to me and say, hey, Greg, how do you think I played, man? And I said, man, that today happens so much more. But you were one of the only players back then that I think would do that. And I think my response back then would be, well, you know how you play. Why are you asking? What are you asking me? I don't. You should know how you play. And I think if kids could focus more on that, they should never think about, hey, I finished the game. Hey, buddy, how do you think I played? How do you think I did? Do you remember that one situation? Well, can you self-assess? Can you figure out how we all know when we played a great game. We all know when we could have done better. We never need that validation from someone else. And I think I look back at that kid where back in the day, it was very rare to see. And in today's world, I think it is a lot of that. I'm always seeking somebody else's validation of, hey, did I play well? Hey, did I do this? Hey, did I do that? Because of maybe the social media aspect and then everything else that's come into play.
And the reason I ask is because the way that social media is these days, I put a tagline to it that's attached to what we do on a daily basis. You know, it's stupidity down here. And when you have people on social media do insanely stupid, racist things for young men, two young men, I always wonder about how the younger individuals handle it, address it. Do they ignore it? Those kinds of things. Because when you see what happened with Flo Balogun on social media after the match last night, it makes you A, wonder why somebody thinks that being that stupid and being that racist is something that is acceptable, A, in their own sphere, and then B, on social media. And then how younger folks address these kinds of things. Do they just sit there and slough it off and it's like, yeah, somebody's being stupid? Or is it being taken to heart more because of the pressures of social media these days?
Yeah, that's an interesting topic because it's you know, I think being part of the ICA, the intercultural awareness training, and being a spokesperson and going through all of that training and understanding what comes behind, and you know, I think it's really, and this was something that someone at the league office said. It said it's really hard to change someone, right? It's really hard to change someone when someone is stuck in their ways, when someone has their political or their certain views. It's almost impossible to change them. So can you develop a way to just help them understand?
Yeah.
And that is I think our biggest maybe you know, goal in maybe ICA training, and also just as a fellow human being, is not necessarily changing someone, because it's when someone has their views and when somebody thinks a certain way, it's very difficult to change them. But
Yeah.
can you help them understand maybe how that person is feeling? And that maybe won't change their ways, but it'll allow them to really think twice before they do something. Will they still have those subconscious thoughts? Maybe, but keeping it to yourself and not sharing it it saves the next generation of understanding much more. I think I was on social media too late last night, to where I think it was already all taken down. So I didn't get to witness and kind of see. I saw the statement from US Soccer. It's saddening. It's saddening that, you know, we are, and I think this is, I had a conversation with my mom about Juneteenth the other day.
Yeah.
And it amazes me that it wasn't that long ago. And that's what really, I think, amazes me, is that, you know, just everything that we've gone through, whether it be from a country or from a world as a whole, all of these things, it wasn't that long ago. So you know, it's still taking time to really help people understand, you know, that a level of respect needs to be instilled within all of us. And you know, man, no matter what your views are, what you feel, or how you think, you know, we must understand. So it's very saddening to see from the outside, but you know, it's really sucks to say that he's not the only one.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, look what happened with Vini Jr. At the end of the Champions League as well.
Yep.
Goes around all the time. And it's, you know, until those drastic measures, which within Spain, they did figure out who it was. And I think they condemned them to years in prison.
Put him in jail.
Is, yeah. And so I think until those drastic measures are taken, that's when things will hopefully start to change.
All right, what's going on with Beyond Goals? I know that you're hitting the road. I saw you on the turf at Mercedes-Benz. Got to catch up with you there. You went to St. Louis. So what's going on these days?
Same old, man. Traveling, enjoying the summer. Anyone who needs any type of mentorship with their son or daughter, and understanding how to whether build confidence, become a great leader of tomorrow, or also gain resilience and gain tough skin and understand that life is not fair. It's how we react.
Yep.
I think I don't know if I said last time, I was at my best friend's son's graduation about a month ago in San Diego, and it was an all boys Catholic school, St. Augustine, I believe it's called, and it was really. He said two things, and I mean, I'm a religious cat, so
yeah.
I won't say the first piece because everybody has different religious views. But the second thing he said is, two things that define a man or even a human, and the first one is how we react when crap hits the fan.
Yeah,
because crap is always going to hit the fan. This guy was a CEO of US Bank, so it was really interesting to watch him talk and take notes. And he said the next one, that's the first thing that defines us, and the next thing that defines us is how we react and how we treat others when we have everything in front of us.
Right.
So that really stood out to me because it's so true. How we react to certain situations when things aren't going great always defines us as who we are. And then also the next part of it is when you do have everything in front of you, and when everything is going great and everything's going well, how do you still act and how do you treat others around you? Is very important. So I don't know if the graduating class listened to a lot of that, but I know I did. And I think as you get older, you understand that. So I guess that was my biggest takeaway, and a great little footnote for mentorship as well.
Very cool. Greg Garza, the Twitterless Greg Garza at BG Mentoring on the 280 Character app. It's always great to catch up with you and Parky when we can, as you guys are globetrotting, especially taking care of family in the summer. Thanks for taking time out there on the gorgeous patio that we see you on occasionally. We will catch up with you in a couple weeks, my friend.
See you, man. Thank you for having me. Have a good day.
All right. That's Greg Garza. He's going to go become more caffeinated. Since it's now past 10 o'clock, we are shifting leagues. We're going to go talk WPSL now. And it is time to catch up with folks. And it is time to bring in both Jack Marchant and Jasmine Ferguson of Decatur FC. What's up, y'all?
Morning.
Hey, how's it going?
All right. So, Jack, since we are a chivalrous organization here at SDH, we'll go ladies first, as Decatur FC's got a big match coming up this weekend. And it is at 7 o'clock at Decatur High School. This weekend, big matchup here in the WPSL. Jasmine, let me ask you this. I want to go back to the beginning. And when it came to Decatur FC as an organization, what attracted you to Decatur FC and the WPSL as something to do and hang out with and improve your craft there in the summer months?
Right. So obviously the coach, Campbell Chapman, I've known him for a very long time. He was my club coach at GSA. I think he was my coach for, if I was there for, I think like 7 or 8 years, he was my coach for probably 5 of those years. And so we have a really good relationship, obviously. And a lot of the girls that I know he was recruiting for the team were also like similar players as I played with them on the club team, and I played with them, and they're all in college as well. So I think it was just a good idea to just play on this team. There's a lot of familiarity and stay in shape for the summers as I'm going back into college.
So, Jack, what's it been like to have this group assemble, Super League assemble, you put it together and to have the season that you guys have been having?
As Jasmine mentioned, like having a core group of the players that have played together before certainly helped, especially early on in the season. But I think as the season's gone on, I think that core group that we've mentioned earlier have done a fantastic job of kind of integrating those from different kind of backgrounds and different youth soccer careers and different college careers into the group. And I think we've got a really tight-knit group going into the last weekend. And I don't want to speak on Jasmine's behalf, but I think it's been a really enjoyable summer so far.
So, Jasmine, has it been a real enjoyable summer so far? I'll speak for Jack. I'll ask.
Yes, it's been really fun. Obviously, like I was saying, that a lot of these girls I've played with before, I haven't seen a lot of them and played with them for about like 2 or 3 years now. So it's been good just catching up. It's like a full circle moment, honestly, just to kind of get back together with the girls. So it's been really fun.
So what has there been one thing that has surprised you, Jasmine, more than anything else, whether it's about the league and the travel and the style of play and just how cutthroat it is out there as folks are chasing after national rankings and championships? Has there been one big surprise for you that you found out playing in the WPSL this year?
I think honestly, like us being a first year team, like I'm really surprised at the turnout that we've accomplished this year. Like we've broken records for attendance, and like we've won games, and we've done a lot of things that a lot of first year teams probably could not have done. And I think that was one of the biggest things that stood out to me, just having all the support we've had in Decatur for this being our first year playing in the league.
So then, Jack, what's it like having folks gravitate from being just across from you where you get to see a full stand to actually now gravitating behind you, taking advantage of the shade tree that you guys are taking advantage of as well? They're on that sideline. What's it like to have the crowd not just be in front of you, but now behind you as you're getting the season going?
Honestly, it's probably a little bit more enjoyable, kind of being in the atmosphere, having it kind of 360 around you. Now, that first game of the season where we packed that far stand, it was really cool to see. But knowing now that the attendances that we're getting and knowing that they're all around us, and at times you get a lot of the kids sitting behind the bench. So, it's they're getting their insight into what it's like to be a soccer player at this level. And I think the girls have done a fantastic job in kind of being mentors and role models for these kids. I mean, you should see the line of kids that we have after games when they're signing autographs, and it's a great to see. I think these girls have done a fantastic job of being kind of poster childs for the league, and for Decatur itself. So it's just been a fantastic experience from start to finish.
So, Jasmine, what's it like when you get that autograph line? Because Jason Longshore took a picture the last home game of the autograph line for all of you, and it is going from one end of the stands to the other. What's it like to have a community embrace you, and not just the next generation of athlete, but you're having the entire community there in Decatur that Jack knows really well embrace you guys from absolute zero here?
No, it feels amazing. Like the turnout has been incredible. I think whenever we win, lose, or draw a game, like we go out there and we talk to the kids, we sign their shirts, and we get to interact with them. And a lot of their parents are like, "Oh my God, like I love watching you play." And it just makes you feel like a celebrity kind of. And we're just kind of like, obviously we do it in college sometimes, but the turnout for this is like way bigger. I've never signed that many autographs after a game in my life. So it's just honestly so surreal.
You need a designated autograph signer when your hand starts to
I know.
it's like have somebody sit there and go, "Look, take over. You know my signature. Go ahead."
Exactly.
Well, I mean, Jack, the quality of play is, I mean, it is cutthroat. I mean, it is some of the best soccer that you have, especially when you have 5 teams, really that are in the top 25 in the Southeast, and then there are some that are making inroads. I don't know how they do the national rankings and the national power poll that appears on the right-hand side of the page on the league website, but I think it's easy to say that you, Impact, Nashville, 865, and UFA can all make a claim to deep runs in the national tournament. What's it like being in a conference that is this competitive out of the blocks?
I mean, it's great, but it's what you want to do when you're involved in sport, is you want to compete against the best. When Campbell and I we'll kind of sit down in the spring and we're putting team together. That was the reason that we put the team together. We wanted a team that could do what we were hoping they could do, and they've done that and more. Again, to be in our first year and be competing near the top of the league is exactly where you want to be, and it's full credit to the girls for buying in to what we're trying to do. The summer's difficult. Everyone coming from different schools, different styles of play, different climates, because that obviously dictates how you play. And kind of buying into what we're trying to get them to do has been brilliant. And again, as we mentioned in the past, this isn't just kind of a flash in the pan moment for Decatur FC and Decatur. It's something that we want to establish and be around for a long time. And we like to think that we're giving the girls an experience, and Decatur FC are giving these girls an experience that Jazz and the likes will want to come back next year and build on. And again, our plan is to be better next year because we'll have a group that's a year more experience down the line. And, we just want to keep building on what we've done, but it's been fantastic so far.
Decatur hosting Nashville Rhythm at Decatur High School Saturday night at 7 for those that are not going to be at Mercedes-Benz watching Atlanta United, Toronto FC. go out to Decatur and watch Decatur FC and Nashville Rhythm. Jack mentioned it, Jasmine, about the idea of all these different players from all these different philosophies, basically jumping into the deep end. How long did it take you guys to get to full song and understand, okay, I know what the player to my left is going to do. The player to my right, I know what they're going to do. The one behind me, I know what she's going to do. The one in front, I know what she's going to do. Or are you still just kind of, it's like, okay, I've got a good idea? Or are you guys at 100% of that mental mind meld where you know what the other one's thinking?
I'd say that I don't think we're at the 100%. Of course, I think we just, in the beginning of the season, we just told ourselves to play simple, just because that's easier to go along with. I know if we're going to make these simple passes and these simple runs instead of doing anything to complex everything and make everything more of like a big game. Like, obviously we know certain people play long ball games. Some people play through the line. So I think if we just played simple and just made those easy passes A to B, we knew what the next person, like you were saying, would do to my left. I knew what she was going to do. She wasn't going to try and do this 40-yard diagonal ball across the top. We knew she was going to play to the 6 right there and then back into the center back and then maybe out the other side. We knew just playing simple would kind of ease the chemistry better with all these different styles of play.
And Jack, one of the hallmarks of Decatur has been the defense, where you guys had a 0 in the GA category for a very long time this year. And when you look at goals allowed, and it's like, oh, 0. And then obviously, you're mortal. You did give up some goals at points. What has it been like to have the defense be the hallmark in this season to get you guys off to that hot start that you had?
Having experience with summer soccer, I think it's something we talked about, especially with the likes of Jazz and Aya, Nigerian and players like that at the beginning, is that more often than not, especially in the summer, goals come from mistakes. And the girls did a brilliant job starting off the season by kind of understanding that. And as Jazz said, we just played simple. I think that was the key, getting everybody on the same page and playing simple and eliminating those mistakes. Like you said, we're all human. We're going to concede goals. It's part of the game. But we've done a really good job since then of kind of reacting to that adversity and building on, but continuing to do the same things. But that's been the cornerstone of any good team, is their defense. Jazz has been an integral part of that. And full credit to her for, again, kind of buying into what we were asking her to do and keeping things simple. And if we do that, we don't concede goals. And if you don't concede goals, more often than not, you win games.
Jazz, what's study hall been like getting ready for Nashville? What do you know?
Wait, what'd you say? Sorry.
What's study hall been like getting ready for Nashville Rhythm? What do you know?
Well, we know we have obviously 2 games left in the season, so it's really just we're giving it all we got right now. We have a really good chance at finishing really high in this in our conference, and we just know that this is just another game. It's not anything special. We know they're a good team. They win the league every single they won the league last, I think, 6 years or something. So we know it'll be a good game, but we know we're a good team. So we know we can just keep up with them, just like we've been keeping up with other teams like that.
So, Jack, along with what Jazz is saying, what have you and the coaching staff been doing to get ready for this matchup against Nashville, knowing, B, that you got the matchup against UFA Monday night to end your regular season over at Oglethorpe? You can't think about that one yet. You got to think about this one now to still get what you want to do and climb the ladder. What are you guys thinking about what Nashville brings to the table?
For us, it's just been, again, focusing on ourselves, keeping ourselves ticking over. Training's been good this week. Training's been good all summer. It's just about keeping the girls ticking over, keep them informed, keep up the good spirits and everything, and keep it rolling. We're going to go into Nashville. Nashville going to be a very technical team. They've got some dangers up top that can score goals, but the main focus is on us and what we can do. Because if you start focusing too much on the other team, it kind of takes away from what we're trying to do. But that's kind of how the summer is. You kind of have to problem solve as the game goes on. That's why I love summer soccer. You can focus on the product that you're putting out on the field, but you've also got to problem solve as the game goes on. But full focus is on getting 3 points on Saturday night, and then our focus can switch to UFA at Oglethorpe.
No doubt about it. All right. So Jasmine Ferguson, Jack Marchant, Decatur FC, once again, 7 o'clock, Decatur High School. Jazz, who's that?
My dog. She's wanting to play right now.
Okay, so go ahead. Go ahead, show. We are a dog-friendly show here. We're a dog-friendly
She's
network.
right here. She wants to play.
Well, then, okay, so Jazz, who is that, by the way?
Lulu.
Okay, so it's okay for you to go play with Lulu now that Lulu has made her debut here on the morning show. Thanks for dropping by, both of you. Good luck this weekend at home for the home regular season finale against Nashville, and then obviously the quick turn Monday night at Oglethorpe taking on UFA. Thanks a lot for dropping by the morning show. Go play with Lulu, Jazz.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
right.
John. See ya.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks, Jazz. And that's what's going on in the WPSL. It is tight. It is tight in that conference right now. With just to give you an idea as to where things are, and the WPSL show we have as a part of the summer six pack, we do have another conversation with Jack talking about the season in general and other things. That'll be on the WPSL weekly. That'll be later on today on the network, so you can listen to that on the network. All of our stuff going on today. It is the summer six pack. It is the weekly review previews with the USL Championship, USL League One, USL League Two, USLW, the NPSL, and the WPSL. All that stuff will be out later today on the network, so you can get caught up with what's going on all across the footprint here on the SDH network and the morning show. Okay, we're going to talk about another league, and I'll see if technology can make this happen for me. Yesterday, got to catch up with someone who is really, if you go into your data bank when it comes to everything going on in Atlanta United, Joseph Samuel is now over at KSA, and KSA is taking on Atlanta United Academy in the UPSL playoffs, and that is a matchup that Jason is going to call on Sunday at Shiloh High School. And so it's going to be really busy. So Jason is going to be calling KSA, Kalanji Pro Profile, and Atlanta United Academy on the UPSL network. And you go to their website, and Jason will have all the links and everything. Sunday night at 7, that is going to be at Shiloh High School. For those of you that want to make that trek and are on that part of the world, you can catch that matchup there. On the network on Sunday, also at soccerdownhere.mixler.com, I will have the call at 6 o'clock pregame show before 6 involving Atlanta United 2 and Inter Miami 2. So Messi and Friends 2, Atlanta United 2, pregame show 5:30, kickoff a little after 6. That's at soccerdownhere.mixler.com. The reason I'm calling it is because Jason's doing the UPSL game involving the playoffs involving KSA and Atlanta United's Academy. We caught up with Joseph Samuel to find out what's going on this season, and KSA has done gangbusters, only losing once. Here's our conversation that we had with Joseph Samuel, and we'll have more coaches coming up on the flip side of that. Trust me. Time to find out what's going on in the UPSL, a big matchup this weekend with KSA taking on Atlanta United. Hanging out with us, an old friend and a familiar face, Joseph Samuel, who's got a little bit invested in both sides of this, and he's on the KSA side. Joseph, thanks for dropping by for an education this morning.
Thank you for having me.
So when the season started there for you at KSA, I guess let's go back even further a little bit. What attracted you to being a part of the KSA and the UPSL to keep yourself sharp in this current soccer environment?
So I've been working with Coach Bruno, since I was like 12. So for me, what KSA represents is a community. So I'm always going to be around KSA no matter what, whether it's helping out coaching or, playing and helping the younger guys. So that's why I really began to play.
When it comes to the UPSL, for someone who has never seen a UPSL match, regardless of where it is and wherever they are here in the United States, what is the UPSL style of play? What's it like to get involved in this kind of a sprint from March to the summer? How would you break down what the UPSL means to the whole soccer footprint?
Playing wise, every team, I feel like they have a different approach. We definitely do, and we switch it up a lot as well. It's hard league, I would say. It's very competitive, and I know players are very strong, and they give it all. It just seems like it represents the same thing for them that it does for me. It's usually a community team. They love being with each other, and then they go out on the weekends and give it all, which is really beautiful, and we love that.
For folks who haven't had the chance to see KSA play this year, I know that for folks that really follow the game here in the Southeast, there are a lot of familiar faces. but who are some of the folks that might be watching your team for the first time this weekend in this big match? Who are some of the big names other than yourself that folks might sit there and go, oh, yeah, I remember that guy. Now I know what he's doing. Who else is there with you?
In our team?
Yeah.
I would say Tony, Mamadou Jallo, Anthony. I mean, he's been doing it for a while now. No, it's pretty much everybody. I think our list is pretty long of really good players with a good resume, and you can feel that when you come to the environment and how they compete, and everybody is kind of like, you can rotate the whole team and still have a good win and a good turnout. So I don't know if it even makes sense to point like few players.
Yeah.
It's more of like everybody's capable of doing the job. It's just at that day who gets picked to do it.
Yeah. I mean, it's because it's Anthony Sumo, Tony Tiente. There's you.
Yeah.
You've got Patrick Okonkwo has had some appearances with KSA. Obviously, Callan's been a part of it, with the Kalanji family. You mentioned Mamadou Jallo. You keep going down the list. Wilfred Camden Chupa, for those that know the local soccer scene, he had some appearances with KSA. So, yeah. So, and Diakite. And so, I mean, Junior Sandoval even had some appearances with this roster.
Junior Sandoval, legend.
I mean, and so it's been really interesting to kind of dive into this roster and see what you guys have been able to do in this particular season, where you're coming into this match. You've only lost once, 8 wins in 12 with 3 draws. And that loss came in the second match of the season, January, February, March 24th against Potros. And you guys have run the table since then. What has it been like not to lose since March 24th?
It was definitely a wake-up call for us, that game. I don't think we were prepared as we should have been. And also, it was the first time we played away, and it just, with all of that comes, it's challenges. And we didn't start good. But after that, I think everybody woke up and decided like that would be the last game we lose, and ever since then we've been on it.
I was going to say, so far you're right, since you haven't lost in 3 months. I mean, how do you not focus on something like that, where you lose there against Potros, you lose 3 months ago? How do you not focus on the fact that, wow, we haven't lost in 3 months and we're just doing it? And you can pick your cliche, game at a time, what have you. How do you not focus on the fact that you guys have had this run and you still have things that you want to accomplish as a team?
I think since we've all been there and done the whole thing and made it to the final, the national final.
Yeah.
I don't think, especially for me, I feel like I don't think any match is too challenging to the point, we are too nervous, or it's too hard and it's not we're not able to get the 3-point. It never feels like that, just because like I look around and so many of the players are talented and they can change the game. Most of the time we do have game changers, and it will be somebody different every game. So I think we all believe we can go far, and I think our goal is to make it to the finals again. We don't focus too much on one game being, weighing too much on us. But I don't know. That's how it feels to me, at least.
Last time you played the Atlanta United, it was a 4-0 win at the training ground back in about a month ago. What do you remember about that match there at the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground against this Atlanta United team?
Yeah, Atlanta's a good team. They bring something different. Very talented individuals. We had to be on it, and we know who we're up against. They like to keep possession. They attack in many different ways. I've been in that system, so every player that's there, taking it very serious, and and taking their development serious. So it's a little bit more different than other teams. And we knew that coming in, and we accepted the challenge, and we met them where they're at. So
what's it like looking in that mirror and seeing a place where you were and now you're going up against them, knowing how they, how they're approaching things? What's it like looking in that mirror and seeing how things were and now where you are? It seems like it's an interesting challenge for you.
Yeah, it's funny because when I was their age, I looked at it differently, and then how I look at it now, soccer is more of a fun thing for me, and instead of a lot of pressure as a 18, 17-year-old kid, because you see a lot of people in front of you. When they look up and they see the second team, they're trying to make the second team. They're trying to make the first team after that. So I know it's a lot of pressure. Sometimes pressure makes diamonds, and sometimes you can see where it can become too much. But nevertheless, they work really hard, and they approach it just differently than I do. So it's kind of nice to tap back into how it was for me back in the day. So yeah, it's
7:00 Sunday night out at Shiloh. It is KSA in the Atlanta United Academy. For someone who's walking in the door the first time, how would you describe when things are going well for KSA? How would you describe what that looks like on the field going up against an opponent? So for someone who's never seen KSA, they walk into this match. How would you describe things are going well for us when blank is happening?
Just being ourselves. I think showing our talent in different ways, showing our defensive ability, showing our transition, and showing how we keep the ball. I think what's really good about our team is we can do it all in different ways. Some ways, we are very direct, and we beat teams that way. We have fast players, very good individuals, especially one-on-one and stuff. And some days we break them down, just pass the ball, find the open man, and then it's a easier goal. So we play as the game goes. Whatever opens up, we're gonna try a bunch of things. Whatever opens up, we take advantage of that, and that's how it usually tends to go.
Well, we're looking forward to it. I know that it's going to be fun, and it's going to be a big playoff atmosphere out there at Shiloh on Sunday night. Thanks for dropping by and hanging out with us here on the SDH Network. Be safe, my friend. Make sure that you come out healthy on the other side, and we're looking forward to it and seeing how it goes here in the UPSL. Thanks for dropping by. Joseph Samuel and UPSL going on. So I'm bringing Jared in here for the final 40 minutes of the show, or for however long you can hang out with us.
Pretty much till we all burn up and turn to dust.
It's been a sprint this morning, brother. Man,
I know. I just kind of I saw the line. I was like, I'm not going to be able to jump in and out efficiently, so I'm just going to come into the second half of it.
Yeah. So we have talked about the men's national team.
Really? What happened?
I know. Really?
Was there a game?
Exactly. Yeah. Bart doesn't have much of a voice, and he had to work through a 25-minute segment venting his spleen about what's going on with the men's national team.
It's going to be wild when Mercedes-Benz Stadium is host to two coaches in one calendar year that are possibly going to lose their jobs because people aren't executing.
Yeah.
Because Greg. Look, man, if Greg doesn't pull something, and actually, that's the thing is, man, you could beat Uruguay and still not go through.
Uh-huh.
Because whether or not you think Uruguay is going to rotate, either here or there,
yep,
Panama is going to try and drop a six-piece on Bolivia. Because if they win by enough goals, it doesn't matter what the U.S. does.
Right.
So, and then you got some decisions to make about Greg, because you can't not get out of the group in the Copa in your country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you got that.
Into Abby asking the question, I wonder honestly, because yeah, I mean you brought him
You
back,
don't
but
have any choice. It's not his fault across the board, but I don't think you have any choice.
you can't not get out of your group.
No.
It's tough. It's never as simple as like a black and white. There are layers to the onion.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So, we're waiting for what happens at the end of group stage, match day 3, when it comes to Copa America, and the fact that 59,000 of you showed up last night, as Bart said in hour number 1, about it was on a Thursday night in the dinner hour in downtown Atlanta, with another event going on that had road closures and unannounced road closures that were attached to it. You had all of that fun. 59,000 showed up, and it was time for Atlanta to show up and show out once again. All right, here's another league that we haven't talked about this morning. Time to drop in and what's going on at the NPSL, and this is where Jarrett takes the lead as the voice of Apotheos FC on the home side of things. We bring in their head coach, Jonathan Mercado, for a couple of minutes because he's got a big matchup going up against App FC this weekend. Coach, what is going on? Welcome to the morning show.
How we doing, John? How we doing, Jared? Good morning. Happy Friday. Excited to get to play this weekend. Season's wrapping up, emotions in the air. So super, super pumped.
All right, Jarrett, you bat lead off on this one.
All right, Coach. Good morning. I know it's a huge game for this week. I want to ask about last week though, because you get the road win, which y'all have done so well this year. I want to ask about Aaron Witten up top because I know he gets a goal this last week, but it feels like he has done so much of that dirty work without getting payoff for the last 3 or 4 games. But then to finally get that goal to kind of break through, it feels like a justified payoff for the hold up work he does, for the pressing work he does.
Oh yes, my boy Aaron. He's a 10 out of 10 true baller. First of all, he's a soldier on the field. He, like you say, he does the dirty work. If there's a word I could describe Aaron as this year, he's pretty much kind of like our unsung hero. He earns his playing time, his starting spot week in, week out. He asks me questions. He asks the coaching staff questions when he needs to know something, and most importantly, he lets his feet do the talking. And he has a ability about himself to be, he does work to get in certain spaces, but sometimes it's just right place, right time type of player, man. And he gets the job done. And I'm so proud of him and the maturity and growth he's shown this season. And I know in these last games coming up, he's gonna, I think this is where he's gonna shine the most. And I know he's looking forward to playing against App tomorrow, along with all of us.
So for those who have not had the chance to drift into this rivalry in the NPSL, with Apotheos and Appalachian FC, how would you describe how these two teams admire, whatever verb you want to use when it comes to this burgeoning rivalry in the NPSL Southeast? How would you describe how these two teams react to one another?
I think it reminds me of Barcelona Real Madrid, a Clásico. No, I think it's a healthy rivalry. Going to App State is not going to Appalachian is not easy. I know our last game against them 2-2 on the road, us going up on them, and then them showing true grit and coming back on us shows the type of character and team that they have. I know the coach as well. Coaching against him collegially in the Peach Belt in the Peach Belt Conference with Clayton State, and he knows how to keep his men organized, his teams organized, and always focused. And myself and Coach Joel and Coach Allen, we do our best to really keep our boys switched on, locked in. And I know there's going to be some emotions in the air. There's going to be tackles thrown. But I know, and all that said, we're going to see good soccer. I know for a fact it's not going to just be a bunch of hits and complaining to the ref and, you know, kicking the ball out and this and that. I know there's going to be good soccer to be played. But at the same time, you know, they're in first place. They have pressure on them and we're in second place and we have our own type of pressure as well to win. So we are really looking forward to it. We trained 4 times this week, you know, to prep up. So I can only imagine that they probably did the same thing.
Well, they were stuck on the road, man. We'll get into that in a sec. Jarrett for Jonathan Mercado.
I want to ask you actually about your coaching and your growth and your kind of growth this season, because your first season was Apotheos. I know you've had experience with Clayton State. You've kind of come up through all of that. How has this season been in just coaching in a different environment, a different league, and kind of finding not just you but your assistants as well, about y'all finding confidence, finding your voice, and just finding a rhythm in how you wanted to run and lead this team?
No, great question. And I've thought about that every day ever since I've gotten this opportunity. Back in, I don't know, January, February. I remember I told myself, I'm like, Johnny, you gotta, you know, this is a excellent opportunity in your coaching career journey to, you know, take this opportunity, learn every second, listen to everybody that, you know, has experience and go with it. Go with your gut. Don't compromise I'm not gonna I told myself don't compromise who you are just because you're coaching older guys or this and that. You know, I have done my best to stick true to myself. Having Coach Joel there, Coach Allen has been such a tremendous help because they bring insight that, you know, they see things that I don't see, but then I see things that they don't. And I think that's what helps us, you know, the most as a coaching staff. We literally bounce ideas off each other, we make adjustments, and then we apply them. And, you know, just I'm proud. You know, I don't like talking about myself too much, but I am. I'll pat myself on the back. That's it. You know, I'm proud of myself for sticking through this. For, you know, I feel like I have shown some growth, but I'm never satisfied. I'm never content. I want to keep learning. You know, we've lost. The loss against Hickory was the best way to really jumpstart my, you know, my hunger for more. You know, that really woke me up. That whole experience to say, okay, Johnny, you're here now. You know, this isn't club soccer. This is a whole new realm. That, you know, even though you were a soccer player in the past, you still play. You've played in this league. You know, on the coaching side of things, it's way different. And by, you know, going into these last 2 games of the season, I can look back and say that myself, along with my coaching staff, we have matured and grown in the sense that we've become a team, like I said, where we bounce ideas, we talk, we communicate. Communication is golden, is gold, and then we apply. You know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and then, you know, after every game, we always say back to the lab. You know, but I'm proud of myself and my team, my coaching staff, and we are looking forward to a big game tomorrow.
Saturday night, 7 o'clock, Silverbacks Park. Apotheos hosting App FC in the NPSL Southeast. It's their third match in a week, basically 8 days. They were at Hickory last weekend. Midweek, they had to travel to Wilmington to take on Port City. They took care of business there in that one. And now they're having to hop on a bus again after a 3-1 win on Wednesday and make their way down to catch up with you as the regular season's coming to a close. So they get 3 in a week at probably one of the worst times that the schedule maker couldn't have given it to them. You mentioned being in the lab. What's the best lesson? What's the best lesson or the best experiment that happened in the lab this year that you learned either about yourself or about the team that has created that helped create the success, you think?
It was the game from a couple weeks ago against Charlotte. I think that was the game where we started off the game a little switched off, and I excuse me, I always tell myself and my team, everybody, that I do not want our, you know, we work so hard. I sacrificed a lot for this game. I've given everything in my life to this game, that I don't want to be known as a coach or as a team that's switched off. That we that we start games switched off. That we're a team that can be taken advantage of in a split second. I don't want to be known as that. So that game against Charlotte, when we got scored on early, it's very hard. You know, you want to be cool with everybody, but at the end of the day, I have a job to do. And when changes are made, I know some players may be mad, may be disappointed, But at the end of the day, what I got to look out for is the team. The bigger picture is the team. And when I remember going into halftime, you know, with all due respect to all my boys, because they have given everything and made this possible for me. I remember talking to our coaches. I said, man, we got to make some changes because as of right now, you know, what we're trying to do is not working. And then when we made those changes and came out into the second half and got 2 goals back, I think that showed that I, I'm not scared in doing what's best for the team. You know what I mean? And I remember being a player, and maybe there were times that, you know, my coaches would make decisions about me, start me, bench me, whatever. I had a bad tendency of taking it personal, and I look back and say, you know, Johnny, you got to learn from that, man. Maybe they had a reason for why they made decisions on you. And I look now into this picture, and when I'm talking to my players, it kind of brings me back to those moments, back like even in my collegiate career. So, you know, I think that was that was my favorite experience this year in terms of learning, improving, you know, myself along with my coaching staff, proving who the type of coaches that we are, that we're not afraid to do what's best for the team.
Jarrett for Jonathan Mercado as they get ready 1 versus 2 in the NPSL Southeast.
Coach, I wanted to ask about the midfield because you rotated a lot of guys this year. We've seen Yola Jones a lot. You know, we've seen Miguel playing more of that spearhead in the midfield, Liam Vivian, but we've also seen like 4 or 5 of the guys through there. I wanted to ask about just the maturity and the chemistry they all have, and that you've been able to roll out different midfields, but guys have been on the same page. Guys have been locked in. They're being where they need to be. They're rotating. They're making selfless runs. How has that chemistry been developing through the years that you can plug in different guys and still get results?
I love that you mentioned that, man. Our team is made up of, you know, we have experienced veterans, you know, not old guys, more guys just, you know, they played collegiately, they've played in this league before, you know. I'm talking in those terms. And we have a good mix of young heads on the team. And every practice, every week, I tell these guys, I go, for my veterans, you must be leaders and you must lead by example. For my young heads, I want you to never take your eye off the prize, your foot off the gas, and I want you to learn from these players around you. And every single game, you know, I think it's just it's very compatible, the type of players that we have, because we have guys that will go in, set the tone, lead by example, and then we have guys on the bench that are coming in young, hungry, and then I praise them because they've done their homework. I know they've seen these players train, the way they act, the maturity that they display, so that when they go into the field, they're not going into, you know, we're not throwing them into the lines. Then I'm a coach that I give chances to my boys. You know, it's up to them to take advantage of those opportunities. But I think we've set a good culture and a good environment where these guys step onto the field and it's not, oh no, you know, these lights are looking a little bright right now. I don't know what's going on. I think it's more of, oh my gosh, I got Liam around me. I have Yolo around me. I have Miguel around me. I have Aaron up top. I have my defense that's secure. You know, they're going into an environment that they know that they're not like content or safe, but they know that they're going to be able to play their soccer, play their football, but at the same time know that they got people around them that are going to advocate for them and have their back, you know, if they lose the ball, or, you know, when they make a good play, hey, well done, well done. We got to keep this going. And I think as a young player, that is so golden, so gold when you have veterans around you that support you in the good and in the bad.
Jonathan Mercado, head coach of Apatheos, going up against App FC, 7 o'clock, Silverbacks Park, Saturday. If you are in the neighborhood, go visit. It's 1 versus 2 in the NPSL Southeast. Coach, as always, it's great to catch up with you on our Freestyle Fridays, especially with a matchup that's this big in the NPSL Southeast as the regular season's getting to a close. Thanks for dropping by on the morning show. Be safe. Jared will see you on Saturday night, and hopefully it'll be a packed house at Silverbacks Park.
Excellent, guys. I can't wait. Appreciate everything.
All right.
Thanks, Coach.
There goes Coach Mercado. And so, Jarrett,
John,
what has it been like for you to see Apatheos storm through the Southeast the way that, because you look at the standings and it is 1 versus
It's
2.
a car crash in the top 4.
It basically is. Yeah, it's a car crash. And to have this lay out the way that it is, Apotheos is at number 2. We know that App's defense is going to be what it's always going to be. It's always going to be suffocating at times, and they, along with Charlottetown, I think have the best goals allowed so far, both averaging 3/4 of a goal a match, 6 goals allowed in 8 matches played. Appa is on top right now at 20 points, 2.5 points a match. Apotheos right now at 17 points, 8 matches, 5 wins, 1 loss. That's the only difference right now is that Apotheos has the 1 loss. App does not. Charlottetown's at 16 points. Hickory's at 16. 865 with 8 matches played is at 13 points. So you've got 5 teams basically chasing after the 4 playoff spots. It's nuts.
It is. And I think the interesting thing has been the growth in not just Apotheos, but the league this year. Like Apotheos changed a lot of things because you changed head coach. It's an entirely new roster. It was tough to go into an Open Cup environment with a new coach, new roster, new game model. They played. We were there that night. They played Chattanooga Red Wolves to a 1-0 loss. Almost tied it up in like the 95th minute.
Yep.
And would have sent it to additional extra time. Their growth has been awesome. The whole league's growth has been awesome, though. Because the thing is, like, I don't want to shortchange the rest of the NPSL Southeast. We talked with Dale Parker about, him wanting to do more structurally with the way they play, and not just playing direct at times, and being able to do other things. I think you've got a couple of teams that are coming in that are trying to get their legs into them, like Port City, who are trying to figure things out. And it's been a tough year for them, but it's a learning experience. I think Charlottetown went through that last year in their first year in existence. Charlottetown got slapped around a fair number of times last year. I think they snuck into the playoffs, ended up losing in the playoffs, but they took their lumps last year. And now, look, you want to look ahead beyond this game. The last game of the regular season for them it's App and Charlottetown.
Yep.
And there's a lot of ways that the Southeast Conference can go in 2024. That game's going to dictate a lot of it. I mean, they could play each other to a draw, beat each other bloody, and then both teams go into the playoffs, have to play each other again potentially.
Yeah, that's absolutely crazy.
It's been very wild to watch the growth of it. Watch teams trying to learn how to do more and trying to evolve from year 1 to year 2 to year 3 to year 4, whatever the hell it might be.
Right.
I've been impressed with all of it. Speaking strictly for Apotheos, they've been fun. I mean, they score. I think they've got the second most goals scored in the league, but they also have given up, I think, 11 goals, which I think Coach Mercado would like to have that number cut in half.
Mm-hmm.
But they're going to play open a lot. It makes for a fun watch. It makes for high-scoring games. It makes for tension, and it's been fun to watch him kind of grow and find his voice, even audibly on the sideline, getting louder, getting more demonstrative. Watching his assistant coaches kind of grow into what they are, and watching them kind of figure out the puzzles in the flow, because not everyone plays like that. You had the Bristol Rhythm game. Bristol Rhythm came in here, man. Look, they built sandbags on a beach in the first 10 minutes.
They did.
At the edge of the 18. In watching them have to solve those puzzles week after week has been a lot of fun to watch. But watching other teams kind of find themselves in years 2 and 3, it's been fun for the Southeast. The playoffs will be a street fight. I look forward to that.
Yep. Jason's now with us for the remainder of the show. And so this morning we have covered the men's national team in front of 59,000. We've covered Greg Garza giving his perspectives on national team and mentoring. We had Jack Marchant, Jasmine Ferguson come in to talk about Decatur and the WPSL. Had Joseph Samuel come in to talk about KSA and Atlanta United. And we've had John Mercado come in to talk about number 1 versus number 2 in the Southeast Conference. Where would you like to start the conversation this morning, sir?
I'm wondering if Jarrett is building sandbags on a beach this morning. It sounded like it.
No, my neighbor is mowing the yard.
Oh, sounded like rain. I'm like, what is happening with Jarrett today?
Well, that's also our other neighbor has a pool in there. Like, they've got the sprinkler thing going in the pool.
No,
that's all kinds of chaos around Jarrett Smith as usual.
So what
That's how
kind
I
of
like it.
Yeah, I bet you do. So what part of the chaos do you want to start with, sir?
Doesn't matter to me. Y'all call it.
We'll start at the top of the order and go about the men's national team. Let's just say it was an interesting evening and go from there.
Yeah, I mean, all the way around. I did 2 hours last night on 92.9 talking about it, and I felt like I was more worked up by the end of the 2 hours than I was going into it, because there's a lot of stuff in that 90 minutes. And look, I know everybody's going to have their own either narrative or agenda or whatever, and that's going to cloud how they feel about it. I try to go into these games, especially with the national team, because just so often I don't like the discourse around it. And it's not because of the players. It's not because of the coach. It's not because of anything. It's frankly because of social media. And it at times makes it not fun to talk about this team, which is not fair to the players. It's not fair to the coaches. It's not fair to the program. But it has gotten incredibly toxic and at times delusional. This is a game where, things go against you because of a player making a dumb mistake. There's just no way around it. And Tim Weah gets caught, gets a red card, as he should have. And the game is completely different at that point. I think Greg Berhalter made the right decisions in the game. I really do. You had to, as the game went on, you get a goal pretty quick after the red card. You concede a goal pretty quick after you get a goal. And as the first half went on, I think anybody who's watching it can tell you a couple things. Again, if you can put things to the side, if you can put social media noise to the side, if you can put influencers to the side, if you can put BS to the side, the way that game was turning was two ways. One, Panama was going to have more of the ball, and that wasn't necessarily a bad thing, by the way. The U.S. created better chances when Panama had more of the ball, because they're not really built to do that. That's not how Panama typically plays, because they don't typically play opponents 11v10, but they also don't typically play opponents where they have that heavy of an advantage. They had it because of the numerical advantage here. You're putting them in an unfamiliar position. That could serve you well, especially when you got Anthony Robinson forward, when you got Joe Scally forward. They went to the line of 5 in the first half. Now, they had to do it in a little bit of a modified way. Gio Reyna was a half wing back, half tucking in and trying to play when they could. But defensively, they were dropping into that line of 5 with Scally tucking in tighter, Reyna providing the extra cover as Panama was getting numbers forward, and you're trying to then hit them on the break. That's the right plan, a man down. And the other reason why it's the right plan, and again, you can do the hindsight thing here and say it's wrong because it didn't work, which is not fair and not how things actually work. You had to get out of that game without losing it. And you didn't ultimately. And that's not because of the tactic. That's because you can't clear the ball out of your defensive third because you're tired, you're under pressure, and you make bad decisions. Robinson, who I thought was the man of the match for the U.S. I thought Anthony was very, very good throughout. I thought he was very dangerous getting forward. He was jumping into passing lanes. He was making up that numerical disadvantage quite often. But he made a big mistake. He had a chance to put the ball into the stands, and he didn't. He had a chance to clear, and he didn't. He tried to pick something out. He turns it back over to Panama after a sequence where you had an opportunity the other way. Panama puts you back on your heels. They put you into your defensive third. They pin you in, and you just need a break because the legs were heavy. You're tired. They're flooding the attacking third really for one of the first times. And they find the cross and they find the goal. And that's the difference. Because if you get out of there at 1-1, of course you're not happy about it. But you have wildly different advancement scenarios. Because as I said going into this tournament, and nothing has changed for me in this, you had to get out of the group. You had to get out of the group. If you don't get out of the group, it's a failure. No way around it. And if you don't get out of the group, you're going to have to make changes because this is your test. This tournament is your test. You don't have another test before you get to the World Cup, the biggest World Cup ever for the U.S. men's national team program. 1994, you were happy to be there. You got to the knockout round. It was amazing. you weren't really expected to do that walking in the door. Anything you got out of that tournament was wonderful. That's not the case in 2026. You're the home team. You are a top 20 team in the world. Yeah, you are. And when you have that home World Cup, you have to take advantage of being competitive, being dangerous, and making a deeper run. I'm not saying they have to go win the World Cup in 2026, but they've got to be in a position to be competitive. And now, and I do not think you can blame, and I'm sure somebody has, but you cannot blame Tim Weah's red card on Greg Berhalter. You can't. But you're going to have to make a change if you don't get out of the group. I just don't think you can get through it if you don't get out of the group and keep him in place. Now, does that mean you make a good change? I don't know. I don't know who's going to be out there. I don't know who you're going to get. I don't know what happens. It creates chaos. But let's go back to where you were when you made tactical decisions in the game last night. If you get out of that with a 1-1 draw, you have a much better chance of advancing. By losing, you're in a spot now where you got to beat the most dangerous team in the tournament. I would say that even more than Argentina. I think Uruguay's looked better than Argentina in this tournament. And you might not be able to just beat them by a goal. You might have to, because you could easily see a scenario if you beat Uruguay here where goal difference comes into play between 3 teams on 6 points. And you might have to chase goals, even with a lead, because you're going to have to watch what Panama's doing against Bolivia. So it's all different because of that late goal you conceded. You wonder why you went more defensive beyond the idea that Panama's not comfortable having that much possession, because a draw gave you so many more outs going into your last game. Now, you got to go in and you got to win by 2, at least. And that's not going to be easy to do. It would be one of the, if not the best wins ever for a U.S. men's national team if you take care of business on Monday. And jobs are on the line, I think.
Jarrett, for Jason, as we wrap up a week here on a Freestyle Friday, what's on your mind?
Yeah, we talked about the same thing, that like, it feels like jobs are on the line, and
I think they have to be, even if it's not fair.
I agree.
I think they have to be.
I think my question then becomes, who do you look for to this? And then I ask the question, the same kind of question you would ask about other federations that are insane, because there are many of them, of, I need somebody who's also crazy enough to take this job with all the toxicity that it carries right now, with the fan base, with the chaos that is CONCACAF. That's just kind of that comes standard. But just, I would be fascinated to see what kind of names you float around or you interview, just because it's such a chaotic and, yeah, at times toxic thing to deal with this country's fan base, with the way everyone acts, the way everyone's been treated. It just feels messy.
Yeah, I think it's different for the pool that you're potentially looking at here. You're not going to have to deal with as much of the CONCACAF-iness if you come in to take this, to basically take a contract through the World Cup, because you don't have to qualify. So, like, you'll have Nations League, you'll have a Gold Cup, but it's different. So I think that part's okay. The toxicity part of it, I don't know if you bring in a coach from outside the U.S., which is my hunch on where you'd have to look here. I don't know if they would notice it, feel it the same way. I don't know if they would care as much, because, I mean, sadly, and I hate that where things are. I hate some of the discourse around the national team. I mean, there's a reason why I very rarely tweet about the national team, because I just frankly don't want to deal with it. And I hate that that's where it is. I'd like to talk about it more. I'd like to, actually have meaningful, good conversations about these things, but you can't do that on social media, sadly. And then the national team is one of the worst topics on social media to try to have that in the soccer world. But this isn't purely a US thing. I mean, you can look at a lot of different national teams worldwide, and you get these inane conversations about it. Sometimes because of results, sometimes because of a tactical decision, sometimes because just social media is what it is, fan bases are what they are, and it gets wild. So internationally, I think is where you're going to have to look, because you're going to have to get a sure thing here. Think back to 94, and when you made the decision after the 90 World Cup, you weren't going to continue with Bob Gansler. You went and brought in Bora Milutinovic because you wanted to bring in somebody who could make the national team as competitive as possible for the home World Cup. I don't know if there's a Bora type of coach out there that would fit that. I'll give you a name here in just a second, but let me set it up just a little bit further. I think you need somebody who understands the World Cup, has been there before, has also been there in a sense of being a bit of an underdog, because that's what the US is. I mean, I do think they're a top 20 team in the world. I think 10 to 20 is a crapshoot on the day as to where you are, but they're in that ballpark. This is a team that you get a good draw, which you will, because you'll be a seeded team. You can get out of the group easily. You can get into the knockouts and have favorable matchups, and you can make a deep run in this tournament. You need somebody who can navigate all that. And I will tell you to look at France, and I will tell you to look at the French women's national team coach, who has announced that he is stepping down after the Olympics coming up here in a few months. And he has been there and done that in World Cups before, Hervé Renard. I think when you're looking at somebody who can walk in the door and do what you need to do, that's the kind of person you're looking at, and he will be available in August. So that would not be a shock. I think we're past the days of looking for a coach who is going to set the agenda for soccer in the United States, who's going to affect the way that youth teams play. No. That's never going to happen anyway, and we don't need that anymore. You've got professional teams doing that. You've got a ton of professionally licensed coaches, licensed coaches doing these things around the country, and they've all got their own ideas. And that's just having a country the size of the United States. That's what it is. You need a coach for the national team who is going to go in and win. Flat out win. He's made a lot out of lesser teams in his career. And if you give him this team, you might be giving him his most talented team that he's ever had. And you're going to give him a home World Cup to do it. I think he's a big personality. I think he can handle all the noise and the stuff. And again, he's going to be available. And that's the other element of this, is when you make a change, you don't always have the list. It's like the Hawks getting the number 1 pick in the NBA draft in a year where there isn't a great number 1. Yeah. When you make a coaching change, you can't guarantee who is available to you. In this case, if you do, and I said it, I'll be very clear, I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's his fault for their result last night, but I think it's going to cost him his job if they don't beat Uruguay, because you can't risk having a home World Cup. You might not have another one for 30, 40, 50 years ever. We don't know. You've got to take full advantage. And if there's any question, and now there has to be, you go get somebody else. And out of right now who we know will be available, and there's more on a list and whatever, but he's the one that, as I've thought about it, I keep coming back to, Hervé Renard.
2 other topics that I wanted to get into you with this morning before we get out of here for the weekend. One is all of the activity in the other divisions that are going on this weekend. It's a very, very busy Saturday on the board. The WPSL, Decatur FC, has got a home match at 7 o'clock. Apotheos, Jarrett's going to be very busy, 1 versus 2 in the NPSL Southeast. You've got Georgia Impact that is chasing in the WPSL. You're busy on Sunday with UPSL. There's a lot of stuff going on this weekend in a lot of other divisions if you can't make it to Mercedes-Benz. And even if you can, there's a lot of other stuff going on.
That's what's great about the game right now in this part of the country. And I know it's happening in other parts of the country, but look, we're a little biased because this is where we are. It's special. I'll go back to last night for one more thing to kind of tie into this. I was internally beaming as I was listening to the crowd last night. That was what a home crowd should feel like for the national team. The USA chant popped up every 10 minutes, it felt like. And it popped up at times where they were trying to give the guys on the field who played very, very hard a man down for a long period of time. There's no question about the effort. There's no question about the fight. I think the mixed zone comments from Christian Pulisic were dead on, and you could hear how much he fought and how much it hurt that they didn't get the result in his voice. But the crowd was amazing. And for some national broadcasters this week to take shots at Atlanta and a crowd in Atlanta and how it didn't compare to some other crowds in this competition, I hope words were eaten last night, because that was ridiculous that it even shots were taken. And two, that crowd last night was as good of a crowd as I've ever heard for the U.S. men's national team. So anybody who wants to take shots at soccer in Atlanta needs to stop and needs to recognize, because those days, they're gone. This is the epicenter of soccer in the United States. It's Soccer City, USA, whatever other tag you want to put on it. It's facts. You're drawing what you drew for the national team last night, and the crowd and the volume and the intensity. You're drawing thousands of people for WPSL games in this region. You've got players who are popping up in youth national teams everywhere. You're drawing for NPSL games. You've got top teams. You're drawing for UPSL games and championships. This is where it's at. And anybody who wants to take shots about atmosphere and, it's not as good as New Jersey, stop. It's time for that stuff to end. You can think whatever you want on the outside, but you have to stop denying what you're seeing and hearing. We're in a really special place. And this is one of the things I said last night on the show. A night like that is really frustrating, and it's easy to be angry. It's easy to be frustrated. And yeah, the U.S. men's national team should have gotten out of this group, no question. And now you got to go pull an upset, a big one, on Monday to get out, and the tournament might be over for this team. And it sucks, because it sucks where that sends the program and the road that it puts them on. That all sucks. But you have to take a step back at some point whenever you can get past that and realize how special last night was, how special it was downtown to see shirts everywhere, how special it was to see so many Panama fans. They were everywhere last night. Give them a ton of props. How special it was a week ago to see Argentina in this town. How special it was to see the Canadian fans that made the trip. How special it is that we look at 40,000 fans for an Atlanta United game as just run of the mill at this point. This is all special, and all of it. And I'm WPSL, thousands of fans at games, special. The quality that Apotheos is putting out on the field for them in NPSL, special. Mostly locally developed players. Same with Decatur FC. Same with Georgia Impact. Like, that stuff is special. So the disrespect of soccer in Atlanta is going to stop one way or another, or people's credibilities are going to be dinged. It's time to let it go. This is pretty cool, what we're all living right now. It's really cool, even when the results aren't fun.
Jarrett, last topic on the board this morning is Atlanta United and
So
Toronto
we have a
FC.
game Saturday night.
Yes.
Oh, we got a bunch of games Saturday night, but yes, there is one at the Benz that I will be on a radio yelling about.
Yes.
Well, we have Jason here. We should probably ask about.
Yeah.
I'm a little riled up. Sorry.
Nothing
No,
wrong
it's
with
fine. Speaking of teams that have had keepers, knocked around with no punishment for officials. We got the Fighting John Herdmans coming to Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Yeah, I can't say it with a straight face either. I guess what are you looking for in this game? Atlanta's going to be not at full strength. Bartosz should be back. I don't know how available he'll be, but
I think he's available. I don't know.
I just don't know if he'll be 90 minutes. Is what I mean.
Yeah, and Rob Valentino wasn't sure either. There's no way he could know yesterday. You kind of got to see how he responds to yesterday's training, how he feels today. But he will absolutely be available. We know that much.
I guess what you're looking for in this game is you're entering I guess the front wall of the storm that is silly season, but you still got to focus on these games and getting points.
Yeah, I mean that's where you are, and there's a twofold conversation when we talk about teams and how they play and how it goes. Like over a span of a season, you want to be entertaining. You want to, I think most teams want to score a bunch of goals. You want to have a lot of fun games. You want to have a style of play that's identifiable. All of that over the run of a season is important. But even inside of that, you get into some spots like this one where Atlanta United's at, and you got to find 3 points. And if it's not exactly the way that you would like to be, you've got to find a way to be successful with what you are. And I asked Rob Valentino yesterday because one of the things from talking to whether it's been really any of the managers for Atlanta United over the years, whether it's been Carlos Bocanegra, whether it's been Matt Lowry in charge of the academy, and the announcement just came out that he is officially part of the coaching staff now. Yeah, he's been there, but it's official now that he's an assistant coach with Rob Valentino. We'll have a clip on our Soccer Down Here socials here in just a bit of Rob talking about Matt and what he brings to the table. Because there's been a lot of focus on Carl Robinson, but Matt has been very, very important in that group as well, supporting Rob. But anybody you talk to over the years, one of the things about the Atlanta United way has been control. And I think the way that we talk about controlling games is evolving. And this isn't just an Atlanta United thing. It's just the way the games are going everywhere. I think the Euros and the Copa America are kind of two tournaments that demonstrate that to a degree. So I asked Rob yesterday about how do you define control? How do you want to control games? And it was really simple. He said he wants to create more chances, and he wants to limit the opponent's transitional counterattacks, limit their ability to counterattack while creating chances. Really simple. Now, you can get to those two things in a lot of different ways. And that's the beauty of where you are right now, because it's not about philosophy. It's about, okay, that's how I want to control a game. I want to create chances. Sometimes that's going to be from crosses. Sometimes that's going to be from more extended possession. Sometimes that's going to be from being vertical and going over the top if teams play a high line. That's not married to one specific thing. That's I want to create chances. So what the game gives you in terms of creating those chances, you've got to go and exploit it and take it, while being smart and being able to transition to defense quickly and prevent those counterattacking opportunities for the opponent. So that's where you are right now. That's how you want to control these games. That's what's key against Toronto. Toronto, if we go back to the Frozen Tundra game from March, I think I've thawed out by now after that thing. You go back to, I'm not sure, honestly. It was crazy. I didn't lose a toe. I was a little worried that I would. Toronto played a lot of man-to-man pressure in that game, and you have to expect that's going to be potentially in the cards for them here. They're missing some people. They do have their Italian dangerous duo, but they're missing some people. So they're going to have to find some ways to make that up. They might do it through some schemes and the scheming of man-to-man pressure at times. So you got to play through that. Sometimes that, again, might be vertical over the top, getting runs in behind to be able to do that, playing straight out of the back over the top as opposed to trying to build up the play. You have to adapt to what the opponent gives you. And I think Toronto will give you some things. And if they play high pressure man to man, I think you can pass through it, but you can also pass over it. You don't want to get one dimensional. So I think looking at this game, those are the things you're looking at. And then the flip side is when transitions happen, you want to kill it off quickly, number one. And if you're connected and your team is compact, you'll be able to do that. Number two, you got to know where Bernardeschi and Insigne are in those moments. And I've always felt like the best way to deal with guys like that is not to man mark them. It's to deny the ball getting to them. Cut it off at the supply line. Don't let it get to them. And that comes back to killing those counters quickly. You've got to, if ball turns over, their center back has it, take away his passing options. Don't let him find the pass. Don't let him especially find the pass to Bernardeschi and Insigne. Make him go backwards. Make him reset. Those are the things you're looking for in this one. And, you're going to try to get down to those individual battles and win them. Thiago Almada, I know the rumor mill's spinning and flying, and there's going to be a lot of talk. I know, but he's trained all week. I don't think you're going to have a change before tomorrow. So you got to set him up to succeed in 1v1s and give him those opportunities to do what he did in DC. Got to win your battles all over the field, whether it's offensive or defensive.
Broadcast plans for you, 92.9 the game on the weekend.
For me, I actually don't have a broadcast today, which is good.
What?
I know my voice is hurting a little bit.
We can find you one if you want.
No, I'm good. I actually don't know if there is one in the regional area. I think we're pretty much off today, which is good.
We can put together a media pickup game for you.
No, nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see that. And I don't want to see you break your back trying to do another bicycle kick.
Or blow out more
Good
shoes.
grief.
Yes.
Oh boy. Tomorrow, 6:30 for the Five Strikes Countdown, 7:40 for kickoff on 92.9 The Game, the Odyssey app. You can listen on Apple TV, MLS Season Pass. It's usually the break after the anthem, so 7:35-ish, that the home team radio clicks in. You go to the audio menu, you choose home team radio. We'll be there at times. If it's not there immediately, go all the way back out and come back in. And that's usually where it kicks in. And if it's not in, then feel free to tweet about it and yell about it and tag Apple, and hopefully somebody will see it and they'll fix it.
There you go.
Sunday, UPSL, Georgia Premier Division Final, Atlanta United, U19-ish. It's probably a U19/U17 group. They are playing KSA Pro Profile. Heard from Joseph Samuel earlier. That is a 7 o'clock start. I think we'll be on just a little bit before that. It's myself, Jessica Jarman, and Madison Cruz on the call for that from Shiloh High School in Snellville, GA.
Yeah, so it's going to be a very, very busy weekend across the board. So let me see if I can recap what we had this morning. We had Bart on the USMNT. We had Greg Garza and Beyond Goals mentoring in the Friday free kick. We had Jack Marchant, Jasmine Ferguson talking about Decatur FC and the matchup this weekend against Nashville as they're chasing after the top spot in the conference. We had Joseph Samuel talking about KSA and Atlanta United. We've had John Mercado come on, talk about Apotheos and App FC, 1 versus 2 in the NPSL Southeast. That is at 7 o'clock Saturday with Jared on the call. Decatur FC is at 7 o'clock at Decatur High School. Gabe Schrei's on the call for that one.
Mm-hmm.
And so then there's the Atlanta United thing going on as well.
The Atlanta United thing going on. Good job, John.
Yeah, the Atlanta United thing going on. At the same time, 7 o'clock at Mercedes-Benz in front of a crowd of 40,000 of your friends, and then the UPSL on Sunday. So, yeah, nothing going on here in the SDH footprint at all.
And then next week, you get to go to New England and then Utah.
Yes. Woo! Schedule compression. Yay.
You get to pay your respects to the remnants of the Toby Keith's This Bar.
I think it was Toby Keith's I Love This Bar. Get it correct. Show proper respect there. There were mafia connections in owning that establishment. That Toby Keith was not involved in those mafia connections. Don't get it wrong.
No.
But whoever his restaurateur franchisor was involved in those connections, and you can go read about that. It was also, and this is my favorite thing about it, this is one of our worst ever stops for food on a road trip. It was at Patriot Place. It was, we could walk to it from the hotel. We were hungry. It was lunch. And we find out later that this bar was the #1 bar in the state of Massachusetts for being the last place that DUI people were, when they were arrested, when they were pulled over and they went to jail and they're asked, where were you last? Wow. It was Toby Keith's I Love This Bar. Wow. They were #1 in the state of Massachusetts.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I was cracking up when I read that one, along with the potential alleged mafia connections.
Well, and then once we
Do
get,
your research, people.
I know. Then we get through Sunday, and we've got
MLS is just the best.
yeah,
For all the reasons.
all the random reasons. Then Monday it's DFC at and UFA at Oglethorpe. And don't you have an Atlanta Soccer tonight after that one?
Yeah, Monday. So it's Decatur and UFA. Depending on the results in WPSL, that game might decide the division champion. That's at Oglethorpe. That's at 7:00. And then Mad Max, Armageddon, U.S. men's national team, Uruguay, Panama, Bolivia. That kicks off at 9.
You're counting on
and
peak Bielsa letdown.
Peak everything. Like peak CONCACAF, peak CONMEBOL After Dark, peak Bielsa, peak Bolivia. I'm expecting Marco Echeverri to come running in. Peak Panama. I mean, all of it will happen, and who knows where we end up. But when it's done, I've got an Atlanta Soccer Tonight show on 92.9 The Game and the Odyssey app where you can listen to me probably lose my mind for I don't know how long.
Oh,
I just want to see. I just need Bolivia to try and harness the magic of Costa Rica. We're going to drag this to the most upsetting 0-0 draw that you have ever watched in your life. Like, we are going to turn an entire generation of people off of this sport kind of draw.
I will make a bold proclamation now that if Bolivia gets a draw or a win, if they don't lose and they help the U.S. men's national team, so actually they're probably going to have to win for this to come true because they've got to beat. Well, no, if both games end in a draw, the U.S. would go through because they'd have the better goal differential. So
yes,
if Bolivia holds up their end of the bargain and helps the U.S. advance out of this group, I will find a Jaime Moreno Bolivia jersey and acquire it. Wow. That's going to happen.
Okay.
I might have to find somebody to make it for me because I don't know if there's going to be many Jaime Moreno Bolivia jerseys, but I will find one day.
I feel like if you hang around Plaza long enough, like one might appear out of Hammer's face.
Bolivia is not the most common you're going to find.
Where did we get our Almirante Brown jerseys? Oh, Retro Zero Races?
No, that's a whole separate place. Those are two different things. And the retros, they're going to have all the crazy Salvadoran jerseys for you, but not the Bolivian jerseys.
Okay.
I will accept a Marco Echeverri one if I have to do that as well. But if Bolivia can help the U.S. out, I will have a Bolivian jersey, preferably of Moreno or Echeverri.
Okay, cool. All right, so we've got that on the board. The Summer Six-Pack will be out later this afternoon. All of our USL preview content.
Just screaming again.
Yeah. Championship League 1, League 2, NPSL Southeast, WPSL Southeast, all that content's going to be out later this afternoon. And
you got to come up with a new name for it because we've claimed the Six-Pack moniker. Okay. It's been stolen.
The summer of soccer-ness, something like that.
That's better.
Yeah.
The MLS Six-Pack has claimed your summer Six-Pack thing.
Okay. So the summer content a go-go.
Yes, and the MLS Six-Pack is available for your consumption as well. Typically, it'll be on Mondays. This week, it was a little bit later because Jess was coming back from Houston from watching Columbia. So that's available ahead of your MLS weekend.
Yes, so the summer a go-go content and the MLS Six-Pack, they're on the network as well. They'll be out later this afternoon. We'll have a bunch of guests and things like that. So if you can make it to Mercedes-Benz, go. If you can make it to Apotheos, go. If you can make it to Decatur FC, go. If you can make it to Shiloh, go, because this is where it's all happening when it comes to soccer right now. It's the summer of soccer, and we're enjoying every minute of it. Jason, thanks for dropping by. I know we kept you for an incredibly long period of time and tried to break down as many things as possible here in one of the biggest sprints we've ever had on a Friday.
Ridiculousness.
Yeah, it is. All right. So for Jarrett, for Jason, I'm just John. We'll be back in various points and fashions. And obviously, we'll be back on Monday morning to talk about everything that happened at the weekend, get you ready for a very busy Monday and all that kind of stuff. So for all of them, play safe, everybody. Enjoy what's going on. We will catch up with you sooner than you may think.